Hi, Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review. Going to talk about the 2004 film, The Chronicles of Riddick, in its Arrow 4K edition. David Twohy directed the sequel to his Pitch Black, and it was a whole different ball game on purpose. They designed it that way. Didn't land that way, unfortunately. Budget was somewhere between 105 and 120 million. It's grossed about 115 million. So not really a hit. It did stall the franchise. It was a video game that came out at the same time, then a sequel to that video game. There was also an animated short movie. And then they finally did make a sequel a few years ago, and they're currently working on another sequel right now. You find that out in some of the new extras that are on this 4K edition from Arrow, which came out a couple of months ago, and it's 3 4K discs. You get 3 versions of the film: the theatrical, the director's cut, and the reformatted for TV, which features scenes from both the theatrical and the director's cut, but then modified in a different screen format. It fills the screen. On each of the 4Ks, you get a different bit of extras. The first 4K, which is the theatrical cut, you get all the new extras. Like there is an hour-long documentary and interviews with all the people involved, just about. There are other documentaries on there, and these are all newly commissioned within the last year, which is great. The second disc is a lot of the on the director's cut, has some of the older extras, a lot of the behind-the-scenes and things that were released on the original DVD and Blu-ray box sets. And then the third disc has some of the stuff like all the videos from the video games. If you wanted to watch the parts between the game that tell the story, the storytelling bits, they're all put together in montages on that disc. No Blu-rays come with this set. You also get a poster, which has the new artwork and the old artwork, and a booklet. It doesn't come in one of their hard boxes. They just stop short of doing that, but it's also available at a reasonable price. So what about the movie? You get them remastered in 4K from the native 4K film elements, the best they could get on the director's cut and the TV version. The only one that gets an Atmos soundtrack is the theatrical cut. You get a 5.1 or a 7.1, I don't remember, on the director's cut. I would honestly watch a theatrical cut because the Atmos was incredible. It was so much better than the 5.1, but I hadn't seen the director's cut in a long time, and I wanted to watch the director's cut. So I primarily watched that, then I went back and put the theatrical version in and checked a couple of scenes, watched a few of my favorite parts to see how did it sound, did it look any different. Looks? No, all 3 discs look pretty great. The extras are also fantastic, but the sound was much better in Dolby Atmos than it was on the other soundtracks. Not that they were bad, there was just more. It was more enveloping, more immersive, louder. I don't know, yeah, 2 thumbs up. I'm a big fan of original mixes a lot of the time, but that was 2004. It's been 21 years. This is a much better mix on the theatrical version. I also don't think the director's cut scenes add that much to the movie. If you're a big fan of the universe and you've read the comic or watched the anime and played the video games and you want to know more about his Furian background and all that, you can. That's basically all that they added to the director's cut. But I got to say, it's just kind of there. There's a couple things, and it does make one thing that happens towards the end more important, but other than that, it doesn't really add a whole lot to the overall film. But you can watch it either way. I will primarily probably watch the theatrical cut going forward because it just sounds so much better. I did go through most of the extras already, and I always like watching stuff with David Twohy because he seems very matter-of-fact. He wrote and directed the movie. Their idea was to not do a Pitch Black 2, but to take the character of Riddick and put it into a science fiction fantasy type film and expand the universe and make a bigger mythology, and they nailed that. The promise, though, at the end of the movie that they were going to go to the Underverse, and, well, not to give too many spoilers away, but he kind of rules them at the end, they didn't really do that. They basically made Pitch Black 2 for the Riddick movie that came out in, I think, 2012, 2013, whenever that movie came out. And there is a new 4K edition of that out there. I'll pick it up at some point, and we'll review them all. By the way, I do have a review of Pitch Black. It came out in Arrow 4K several years ago, and I think I have a review in the podcast that will tell you it looks and sounds fantastic for its age. This was one of the movies that kicked off Vin Diesel's career, the original Pitch Black. They offered him a lot of money to come back, a little bit more money than he made on Triple X. They spent a lot of money on this film, and it's almost all on the screen. There's a lot of practical effects and model work and miniatures and some really good matte paintings and things like that. It's a science fiction fantasy epic the size of a Fifth Element or something like that, or a Valerian. It's not what people were expecting from a Pitch Black 2. That's one thing. And watching it now, I got to say, the whole side trip to the jail planet to find the character from the first movie, did it really have to take up that much time? When it's all said and done, they really didn't even need to go there. But anyway, because that character eventually dies at the end of the movie. So the whole thing was kind of pointless. But anyway, long story short, they do have ties back to Pitch Black, but this is a different film. If you're a fan, then you probably already own the Arrow set and get the Pitch Black and get the Riddick, which is available from Shout Factory in the U.S. I don't know that Arrow is going to be doing a version of Riddick, but that would be interesting if they did. I thought all 3 discs look great. I thought there's a plethora of extras. I always like reading through the booklets that come with the Arrow releases. I don't really use the posters, but it's nice that a poster is original artwork on one side and the new artwork on the other. That's been that way with every Arrow special edition I have. So in the end, I have to say, if you're a fan, pick up this version. It definitely is an upgrade over the old DVDs and Blu-rays. If you're not a fan, it depends on how much you like Pitch Black and how much you want to see that whole universe do something different. I have always enjoyed the Chronicles of Riddick. I played the 2 video games. I had the animated movie, and I'm looking forward to picking up Riddick because I just like the whole universe. I'm looking very much forward to what they do if they make this final film they're talking about making, because they are supposed to go to the Underverse, which is the whole reason why the Necromongers do what they do in this movie. Chronicles of Riddick, 2004. Some people love it, some people don't. But you have a great 4K edition from Arrow that you could pick up right now for actually a very decent price. And it's the best copy of the movie that there's ever been, with all the extras you could imagine. Scott, I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts are on the way, including I watched the Italian horror film Planet of the Vampires for the first time in my life. We'll talk about that in the next podcast, coming up right here on ROCKFILE's podcast. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a spectacular day.